All right, everybody, before we get started with today's episode, I do want to observe a moment of silence for the people's lives that were lost and homes that were lost in the Palisade Fire and the Eaton Fire, and any other structures or anything else, all the aftermath, everything that everyone is dealing with right now. So yeah, let's just take a moment of silence and maybe pray, meditate, and think on all those people in this really tumultuous time. Okay. All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to episode 31 of Zesty Thoughts with your host, Annábla. This is my first episode recording since the horrible fires that we experienced here in Los Angeles. For those of you that don't know, I am based in LA, and I live in Santa Monica. Luckily, I am in a safe area. I didn't ever have to evacuate. There was no warning or anything from my neighborhood. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, it's been a really weird week. There's just been a lot of emotions, obviously, for the people that lost their homes and the community that was just completely destroyed. It's a little unique from my perspective because my parents were born and raised in this area of LA. And so I think it's been weighing on them a lot emotionally because there were a lot of historic places that also burned down. Obviously we first and foremost have a lot of empathy and are feeling for the families and people's homes that are just completely devastated and gone now. That's obviously horrible. And now as they are searching the area, they're finding bodies, which is even more depressing, that some people didn't make it out. But yeah, no, it's tricky living here and reflecting on that, and the community definitely there's something in the air. Everybody's feeling a little bit, you can just tell, even if you haven't, even if you weren't personally impacted, someone was. So it's pretty rough, but it's been really, really beautiful to see how the community has just the people that weren't affected, people are just sucking it up and helping and donating and donating their time and we were meant to go volunteer at a YMCA this past weekend, and they were turning people away because they had too many volunteers. So it's really it makes me have a little bit more hope in humanity, and at least our local community, that people really are showing up for each other, and that's all that matters. Because not everybody has money to give, but people are willing to dedicate time and energy and help in other ways. And that has been a really, really positive, I guess, outcome from this. It's oh, we do have a community that we can rely on. I don't know, it makes me think kind of I wish that we didn't have to have disasters for community to show up in that type of way. And I think it should be like a little bit of a wake-up call for the city as a whole, that like, hey, we know that, in times of need, we show up for each other, but it's like, even when there's not a disaster like this, like people are always in times of need. There's always people that need help. It makes me kind of think on like the homelessness situation, and how many homeless people there are in this city. And it's like, hey, we're able to show up for people when their house is burned down and they're homeless and they need assistance. Like, why don't we show up for, the rest of the homeless population? I know the circumstances are obviously different. And there is a small amount of the homeless population that is, doing it by choice, but that's not all of them. And, I don't know. Hopefully we can, reflect on this in that way, and, continue to show up for people in our community. Because we obviously hold a lot of power. And this is not just like Santa Monica specific, like West Side specific, but just like all over LA. Clearly we're able to show up for each other, so we should do so more often, I guess is what I'm saying. But I guess that's all I really have to say about that. I will link some GoFundMes in my description for the pod this week. If you have anything to give, even if you can just share them online. If you don't have anything to give, you never know who might, so yeah. Anyway, on to more positive note. I am super happy today because I slept kind of weird last night, and I slept in when I was supposed to wake up at 6:30. I slept till 8. I like snoozed my alarms, and then I was like, oh, I'll wake up in 15 minutes. And I set a timer for 15 minutes and then snoozed that. So I slept in, and then I went for my like little hot girl walk and had breakfast and stuff. And then, I don't know, time came down to it, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to have time to record this morning before I go to work. And then I got a text that my first student was canceling, so I didn't have to go until later. So I'm recording before work, which is great. Like, I don't mind recording at night, but now I'll have my recording done and be able to like edit throughout the day if I have any gaps at work, and finish editing and posting stuff tonight. Shoot, that was kind of nice. Serendipity works out. I was kind of stressed all morning because the timing of everything was just not going the way I planned it, on due to me snoozing and like sleeping in. So it's like my own doing, but it was stressing me out. So I'm like, thank you universe for seeing that and accommodating me, because I was like, I'm gonna have to record at night and then I'm gonna be up late again. So this is fantastic. It's going to help me reset my schedule, hopefully. Anyway, so I went on a hot girl walk this morning, and I was listening to some of my thirsts of the week, that I'll talk about later, and just listening to some new music, new albums and stuff. And I just got into this like and I always find myself like a very reflective headspace when I am taking a walk in my neighborhood. I mean, I'm not living like directly in like nature, but my neighborhood has a lot of trees. A lot of like homes have like plants and flower gardens and stuff like that. So it's like, there is definitely some like smidge, like a little touch of nature in my neighborhood, to the extent that like I can just go on walks in my neighborhood and feel like that sense of like I'm in the world, and like, you know what I mean, it's not like if I lived near like a forest or anything, but you get what I'm saying. There's enough that like I get that like serotonin boost of like being outdoors and like seeing trees and butterflies and birds and all of that kind of stuff. So I always get kind of into that zone when I am on a walk in my neighborhood. And usually I'll listen to music and just like vibe out and think about life. And I'm super lucky that like I have access to that in my neighborhood. But I always get very reflective, like introspective about life and the world around me. And this morning I really like like sunk into like one specific thing, and then once I like noticed it and thought about it and observed it, like it was just with me the rest of the walk, and it was so cool. So I don't know if any of you have seen online those photo comparisons of like things in nature compared to like things in the human body. For example, like I don't know, like stretch marks compared to like I don't know, like cracks in the earth, like things like that, like paralleled things on earth that look like they're designed in the same way as parts of the human body. And I was just looking at like the trees and the different kinds of trees. I don't know anything about like lots of types of trees. I would like to gain knowledge surrounding like one thing in nature. Like there are a lot of people that are like bird people and they like know a lot about birds. I'm kind of curious about trees, so maybe I should like buy a book about trees or something, and like, or at least watch some YouTube videos and like do some research, because I'm like very curious about trees specifically and like knowing what kind of tree is what. So maybe I'll go down that rabbit hole and then I'll rant about it for an episode. But that was one thing that I was observing, was like just the types of trees and how there's like a large variety of them. And I was looking at some of the trees that had lost their leaves and it's just branches, and like the shape and like the way they branch out. And it's like, oh, it's like they're like branching out like nerves through the body and like through different limbs. And then like branches that like branch out like veins and like neural pathways, and like branches and like trees that are shaped like cloud like your lungs and like the sections of your lungs. And I was just like I was completely sober, by the way, just a like cup of coffee in. But it was just like so interesting to like observe that and like try to draw parallels. Since I've taken an anatomy class, not like I'm an expert, but seeing how many things I could find that drew like direct parallels, like visually, to things in the human body is so interesting. So I highly suggest the next time you are in nature and go for a walk, like give that to yourself as an assignment. Like try to see how many things parallel to like bodies, and like I guess not just necessarily humans, but just like animals, like living things. How many like plants and like parts of nature are paralleled to like some part of like the anatomy of like living things. It's very, very interesting, and it makes your walk just like a little bit more interesting and a little bit more, I don't know, it piqued my curiosity, and it just like, I don't know, it was cool. And I think I'm gonna like give myself assignments like that when I go on walks. Obviously it's nice to just have like a leisure walk and like listen to music and not like think about anything in particular, but it was kind of like nice, like, and it's like walking and just doing the same thing for a long time can be kind of mundane. So if you ever need to change it up, I would suggest trying that. I know there's some people that like are like, oh, find purple things, and then it's like your whole time you're just like searching, like I Spy kind of, for like a specific color, like a specific letter or number or something like that. I've never really done that before, but that I think is kind of cool too. But yeah, so that was super enjoyable. I loved that. To jump into some of my thirsts for the week, yesterday, Monday, actually, while I was driving to and from work, and then today while I was on my walk, I was listening to Casey Musgrave's new album. Let me pull up the songs that I saved from it. I just adore it so much. Casey, she's like one of my favorite artists. It's just like every project is just like a total hit. Star-Crossed was the only one that for me was like, I didn't save as much from it. But Golden Hour was like definitely like a deep obsession of mine for like a long time. So this new album that came out last year, Deeper Into the Well, it's just like the songwriting is impeccable. It's so captivating, concept wise, like a lot of it. It was just a very satisfying project, lyrically, and production was really nice, like very fitting to the songs. But just, gosh, the songwriting, like if you want to like really dive deep into an album and get into your feels and like reflect, on like life and like relationships and like, oh, it's just so heartwarming. And a few of the songs that I think were standouts for me, definitely Heaven Is. I loved it so much. So precious. The Architect, Too Good to Be True, and Little Sister. I don't even have a little sister, and that song was like, it had me like tearing up. It's so cute. So I highly recommend y'all listen to it. I think sonically it was such an interesting journey, like production wise too. A lot of the songs, obviously she's a country artist and it's a country album, but a lot of the songs were very dynamic, like within like an alternative kind of country genre, kind of bending thing. And I just think they did such a brilliant job complementing the songs. Like, and what I mean by song is like just like the lyrics, you know, with the accompaniment, just like the melody, what you're singing. If you could just sit down with one instrument and like on a guitar or on a piano and just sing the song, like they did such a good job of complementing the song, you know, alone. Like the production is so well fitted and just even just like emotionally and spiritually like matches what the songs are about. So I think it's a brilliant project. I haven't even looked up like nominees for Grammys or anything, but I would hope that it would be nominated in the country category because it's, to me, it's like a work of art. It's really, really good. And it had me kind of thinking also while I was on my walk. I only walked for 30 minutes. So it's like my mind was all over the place with with anatomy and things like that. But it really did have me kind of thinking and reflecting on like the satisfaction of just like a well-written song, and like folk and country music, and just like the amount, like that's the only word I could think to use, like the amount of satisfaction I get out of just listening to just like a good song. And it doesn't even have to be like fully produced out, like even just like demos or like people posting songs online, just like they're singing them in their room, you know, just an instrument. Like there's something about it that is so just like soul touching and like at the same time can be so like soul crushing and just like inspiring when you just hear a good, well-written song that's clever, has good lyrics and like a good structure, and it's just like wrapped up with a bow, just like a perfect story or a perfect like anecdote. That is just so, it's so human to me. Like it's so eerily human when you hear a good song. It's just like you feel seen, even if you don't relate to it. Like the Little Sister song, I don't relate to that song. I don't have any siblings. I'm an only child, but it was just one of those songs I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have a little sister, but if I did, I would imagine this is exactly what I would feel and the exact words that I would want to, you know, gift my sister. And like, oh, just imagine Casey Musgrave's little sister hearing that song. I would die, you know. It's just so, it's so inspiring, and it just makes me so like proud and like so excited and like enthralled that like I am alive to experience it, and that like we as humans can like experience art in that way, and just like the art of songwriting and how impactful and like powerful it really is. And I don't know, like as a side note, it just makes me sad that like songwriters are not like valued in the way that they should be. That's like a really big issue right now within the music industry. It's a really big problem. Songwriters are like severely underpaid. And yeah, I mean, I could link some articles and stuff, and I could really probably do an entire episode on like how I feel about that and the state of the music industry and like the powers at play that are like really undervaluing and taking advantage of songwriters. And it just makes me very, I don't know, gets me kind of upset, because I'm a songwriter too, and I understand like how much you put into, how much of your soul comes out and goes through a song, and like you really are like a channel for like humanity and like the feelings and like the internal world of humanity. And like if that's not valued in society, and like people that are, I don't know. It's like we value art in so many other ways, and people are willing to throw, money at it and donate and invest basically their time and their money into other forms of art. But it's like streaming and the way that it has become like the norm for people to consume music. It's really taken that like investment away, because you can just pay $10 a month and listen to whatever you want instead of having to pay like $10 for a project. And it's interesting because I feel like now more so than ever, I'm seeing a lot of independent and even like some like bigger signed artists that are very resistant to the streaming model and that are trying to go more grassroots and like, hey, no, if you want to listen to my project, like I spent all this time and energy and money and like my soul on it, like you have to purchase it, you have to buy it. And I'm sincerely like considering doing that for my next project, because I've been like obviously working so hard on it, and I realize now that I'm an adult and like I'm trying to do this for a living, like how important that is to not like undersell my art and to stand up for myself, and just like putting my art out on streaming platforms. It feels like cheap to me. It feels just like I'm just like, okay, here you go. And I feel like maybe this is kind of a hot take, but like a part of me is like, I can't like respect myself fully as an artist and like a producer and a songwriter if I don't try to place some type of value on my art. It feels kind of gross. Like now that I have a different perspective on it and I see how negatively streaming has impacted, small artists that are really like they're trying to do this. Like that's what everyone wants. They want to make their complete living off of music, and they're all working full-time jobs, and doing their art, and having side hustles. And it's like these small artists are virtually working 2 full-time jobs to pursue this. And it's like, you should get something out of that as a full-time job for you, and that's obviously just one way, just one outlet that you can get it. Obviously, like merch and touring and other things are another resource that you have. But anyway, yeah, like end of that rant. But I think that's more of like a positive like thing in the right, it's like a way that we can move in the right direction. And so I'm trying to talk more with like musicians and like friends of mine regarding that, because I feel like we should be encouraging small artists that have the control over their music to ear more on the side of that. And that doesn't mean that you don't like eventually put it on streaming platforms, like but maybe for like an initial release, like the first like 3 to 6 months that it's out, you have to purchase it in order to listen to it. And then maybe it gets put up there just to like have as an archive and collect pennies or like quarters of pennies, you feel me? But yeah, to circle back, like Casey Musgrave's album was really good. It got me in a great headspace. It was very inspiring. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a very, it's like an important topic to discuss. And I feel like there are even people like active musicians in the music industry that aren't very heavily educated on the impacts of streaming and like streaming services and like how they're hoarding money that potentially could be revenue for like artists and songwriters and stuff like that, and how if you're not a part of a major label, there's no one really like advocating for your revenue and making deals with these services. Like that is like the one benefit of being part of a having a major deal and like being part of a major label. But so it's tricky. It's a tricky like situation, because not everybody wants to be signed with a major label. There's a lot of like kind of negatives to it. Obviously it's like having access to like more money, but it's like it's basically a bank. That's like major labels are banks. They loan you money and services, and then you have to like recoup them on that. But you can get to a certain point where it's like, hey, in order to see my vision out, I need access to more money. And hopefully that vision is successful and reaches enough people and, pops off enough that you're able to recoup that money. But a lot of people aren't that lucky. A lot of people don't get to that point, and then they're indebted to labels. Now I'm just ranting about the music industry. But I think it's interesting to talk about, because I know that there's a lot of people that even in the music industry, young people that are aspiring musicians, that like this is not even on their radar. I think it's more, that information is more spread now than it ever used to be because of social media. And it's like, thank God. Because it's, it's kind of anti the man, it's anti-establishment. It's like, there is like an ounce of like, hey, like we're being taken advantage of, and maybe songwriters need like a union. I don't know. I don't know if there's talk of that. Maybe I should do more research on that, but I really feel like songwriters as a whole should have a union that's willing to be like, hey, you know what? If you don't pay us more, then like we're pulling everything from the platform. And if songwriters were members of specific unions that could advocate on behalf, then like they would have the power to do that. Because at the end of the day, like companies like Spotify and like Apple Music and stuff like that, like they don't thrive and make money if the song doesn't exist. So like pay the people that make the song, like compensate us fairly, because you wouldn't even like be able to pay your bills and have all this profit if we didn't sit in our rooms and studios and like create art. You feel me? And it's like, music's not the only industry where like artists are being taken advantage of. I'm sure that's like a large thing in pretty much every artistic industry. But it's very like malicious, at least from what I can see, because I know about it. You know what I mean? I'm not educated on other industries. I can imagine like the art industry, like fine art industry, is like also very disastrous and like malicious, and people are taken advantage of. And I've heard that there's like a lot of money laundering involved, and like a lot of like tax evasion-esque kind of stuff that's involved with like art studios and like art like, art sale and stuff like that. And yeah, it's crazy. It's just like there's always going to be someone that's going to ruin it. There's always going to be someone that's going to ruin it. But all we can do is, gather and share information and have these conversations like in like a casual way. Just be able to talk about this stuff so that people are educated on like, hey, by the way, this is like the way this functions, and hopefully that can lead to, community organizing and like, and a little bit more, advocacy on a larger scale so that people can fight against that. You feel me? You feel me? You feel me? Because I think it's a disservice to humanity to like have it commodified to this extent that there's like so much greed and like mistreatment involved. It's a bummer, it's like, bruh, someone always has to ruin it. Like, that's crazy. I don't know how we fix that as a society. That's like another layer of all this. I've been thinking about it with the fires, because all of a sudden there's been like this upsurge in like illegal price gouging in housing right now in LA. And it's like, dude, what? That shit is so illegal. First of all, it's like, what are you doing? Like, someone's going to notice and report you. And like, there will be some people that will slip through the cracks and like successfully, illegally, like take advantage of someone that has literally lost their house, which is so like royally fucked up. It's like not even funny, but it's like, there's always going to be like, how do we eliminate greed to that extent? Like, we don't take the time or the energy enough, I think, like certain people that actually have the ability to, and the privilege to, don't like shame that enough. And it's like, damn, like I wish that I wish that that was a thing. Like, I wish we could just be like shameless. Like, hey, like, that's evil. Don't do that. Or like, that's illegal. You're arrested. Like, you can't like be a member of society and like do things like that like impact people so negatively. Like, we don't fuck with that. We don't agree with that. And we don't want you to be able to have access to society to do that, because that's wrong. Like, we don't fuck with that, you know? I don't know. I just think we're not there yet. Like, I would hope that like we're stepping in that direction. I think with social media and low-key with TikTok, that we're stepping in the right direction, and a lot of young people are like had it up to here. And it like makes me think of the TikTok ban too. Like, to be honest, I don't really care if TikTok is banned, because like I'm so addicted to it that I'm kind of just like, get it away from me. Take it away from me, please. Like, go ahead and ban it. But I also see how the motives behind the ban are a little bit problematic. It's a lot of like, it's giving, you don't want us to be able to share information, and you don't want us to be able to like gather and like have productive like discourse about serious topics that are affecting like a lot of people. Yeah, it's giving censorship. So like, I feel like a lot of people are like, you're not going to take this away from us. And we're always, the one thing that I like appreciate about our generation is like, we're always going to find a way to communicate and like have these discussions. There's always going to be a platform, no matter what it is, whether it's Reddit, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube. There's always going to be a way for us to like have these discussions. Twitch, you know, people going live and like talking about this stuff. There's always going to be a resource. So long as the internet exists and we can communicate to each other on the internet, it's like that ship has sailed. There's always going to be a way for us to get the word out. In a way, it's like TikTok is such a beautiful, like such a unique way that information was, you know, like spread because of the algorithm. It's so, I don't know. I who's to say there will never be anything else like that? And now everybody's like downloading Red Note, and it's like, who knows where that will go? There's always going to be something though, like that. I know for sure. You feel me? People are persistent, and if they want to spread information and like utilize the internet to their extent in a legal way, they're going to, you know? So I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's like, feels like we're trying to be silenced, and like that's obviously not going to happen. So go ahead and ban it. Like, see what we care, because we're just going to go to another app or like go somewhere else on the internet or create our own thing. And yeah, that's really all I have to say today, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and that you have a nice week. I hope that if you were impacted by these fires, that you're, you know, getting the help that you need, and that you're able to hopefully find some like refuge and like outlets right now that are helping you like I can't even fathom like to have to regulate this like level of like loss and grief is like so crazy. So please just take care of yourself, and you know, ask for like as much help as you need. Like, don't even hesitate, you know? It's like people are ready to show up for you, and this is the time to like be vulnerable and ask for it and take it and accept it, and not feel shame for doing so. Because I know a lot of people feel shame in asking for help, and feel like, oh, you know, in that level of independence, especially when you're an adult, dude, you feel even like sometimes embarrassed to ask for help or for money. But it's like, dude, just take it and let people help you, and try to find outlets that are going to keep you positive and sane through this time. You know, seek therapy. I know there's a lot of resources now that are offering free therapy or discounted therapy. Do what you need to do, and have boundaries with your grief and returning to work and all those kinds of things. Like, don't be afraid to communicate, like, regarding your feelings and like where your mental space is, and like if you need a break or if you need this or that, like just advocate for yourself and take care of yourself, so that you can get through this. as best as you can, you know? And we'll be there for you if you need help. I'm going to link some stuff in my bio. I hope you guys have a wonderful week and a safe weekend, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye.